Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome back once again to our ever ongoing lecture series entitled The Glories of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastrita Deshatarane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we're continuing with our mini-series on stimulation for ecstatic love, and this will be part 171, in which we will carry on with our present theme, the glories of Srimati Radharani, continuing with the second class on her merciful glances. But before beginning this class, I would like to pray for the blessings of my spiritual master. This prayer was composed by the poet Govinda Swami of the Vallabha Sampradaya. He prays, O Gurudev, ocean of knowledge and divine wisdom, when will you call me your own and engage me in service at your lotus feet? When will I behold your divine form as you lovingly serve your beloved Lord? When will I see you absorbed in the nectar of divine love? And when will your merciful glance release the arrow of prema and pierce my heart with love of Krishna? O Gurudev, that is my only desire. Govinda sings your glories day and night. Govinda sings your glories day and night. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Now, as we have discussed, Sri Radha's eyes are wonderfully beautiful and divine, but, as we're beginning to see, so are her glances. The poet Nanda Das explains this with a charming metaphor. He writes as follows: her graceful eyebrows form Cupid's bow. The straight line upon her forehead becomes the bowstring. The dark carnelian decorating her eyes becomes the polish of that bow. And her eyelashes form its delicate ornaments. But her glances, oh, those are the arrows. With those arrows, she mercilessly strikes the heart of Krishna, the Lord of Nanda. Haribo, Hare Krishna. Now, in devotional poetry, we often see that glances are compared to arrows and spears and tridents, but eyes are compared to very soft and gentle things, like lotuses, and I've been reading crescent moons, the eyes of a doe. I read one where the waves of the Milky Ocean eyes. So why are glances compared to weapons? And the answer is because they pierce directly into the heart of Krishna. If Krishna's heart is the target to be conquered, then Sri Radha's glances are the arrows to strike that target. Therefore, poets compare them to arrows called kataksha, sidelong glances. Now, let us consider the science of glances. In the Vishnu Dhamotara Purana and in the Natya Shastra, there's a description of many types of glances. In fact, I was reading, Bharata Muni describes 36 different glances. Bharata Muni, 36 different glances. Some examples of these, and he's actually describing them in relationship to theatrical performances. But of course, everything comes from Radha and Krishna. So he describes sama, a straight and level glance used at the beginning, and he actually uses the example of the rasa dance. Alokita, wide circular glances expressing wonder or curiosity. Then there's the sachi, a sidelong glance used to convey hints or secret meanings. Pralotika, glances moving from side to side. Nimilita. Nimilita means half-closed eyes in a glance showing meditation or contemplation. Ulokita, glances looking upwards. Anuvrita, rapid up and down glances showing excitement or fear. Avalokita, glances looking downwards. Yes, those are some. And the Natya Shastra in verses 40 through 44 further describes glances expressing many moods. Just as we have moods in this world, there are moods in the spiritual world. In fact, the moods in this world are the perverted reflection of the moods in the spiritual world. Prabhupada said, everything's there in the spiritual world except envy. So the following are glances expressing moods. Graceful glances, fearful glances, humorous glances, compassionate glances, wondrous glances, furious glances, heroic glances, and even disgusted glances. And there are affectionate glances, he mentions. Joyful glances, sorrowful glances, angry glances, proud glances, and astonished glances. Then he describes bashful glances, tired glances, doubtful glances, bewildered glances, intoxicating glances, and many more. So in theater, the artists have to learn all of this. Altogether, these form 36 varieties of glances, again used in classical drama. But then a question comes, how do we know that these glances actually exist in Sri Radha and her compatriots in the spiritual world? Because I was mentioning it all comes from there. Well, a medieval South Indian scholar named Madhava Bhatta, in his book entitled Ananda Vilas Leela, he explains that all the glances described by Bharata Muni in classical aesthetics find their perfect and complete expression in Sri Radha and her pastimes with Krishna, because she uses a lot of glances with Krishna. He describes she is the treasure house of all beauty, all art, and all expression. So thus we can understand that all these glances ultimately belong to Sri Radha. Now when speaking about her glances specifically, I remembered a beautiful poem by the poet Rashkan. Remember, he was a Muslim who came to Vrindavan for whatever reason and became a Brajbasi. And he was an exceptionally wonderful poet. And in one of his poems, he describes a gopi says to her friend, "Oh, Saki, I have witnessed something very unusual in the forest today. The groves of Vrindavan seem to display many different moods, the groves. Some trees appear crooked, some appear filled with love, some look astonished, others seem fearful. I concluded that all the forests have absorbed the different emotions of Sri Radha's glances. O friend, the eyes of Radha are the very life of the forests of Vrindavan. They welcome Mohan, Sri Krishna, and serve him. In the same way, her glances nourish the endless pastimes of Braj." Rashkan says that when he sees the forests of Vrindavan, he sees them as reflections of the glances of the Queen of Vrindavan. How beautiful. How beautiful. The beauty of this world just pales before you as you hear these transcendental topics, and we have to find time. We have to find time to hear this. This is the medicine for the disease of material life. What a wonderful medication. So we can conclude, even the forest of Braj catch the mood of Radharani's glances. Braj is truly magical and mystical. Now another poet writes, "O lotus-faced Radha, with your glances and your charming teasing words, how long will you continue to bewilder Murari, Sri Krishna?" So of course that verse again reveals an important truth we discussed last week. Krishna himself becomes controlled by the glance of Sri Radha. Therefore, once again, devotees pray to have one of those glances, that Radha may look at them. And that's very much in line with the famous saying here in India, in Sanskrit, Om Sarvato Chakshushe Namaha. I offer my obeisances to the one whose eyes and glances see everywhere. And so do we. So I would like to share now a beautiful pastime described by another great devotee, Braj, Balavadas. He writes, one day Lalita and Vishaka were walking near Varshana, and suddenly they heard a large crowd gathering somewhere nearby. So curious, they went to see what was happening, and they found that under a banyan tree there was an extraordinary sight. There was this radiant, it's described, Siddha sage. Siddha means perfected sage, who sat there in meditation. And he sat in perfect lotus posture. And the sage described his body glowed with a spiritual brilliance and was covered with what? Dry sandalwood ashes. First time I've heard that. Dry sandalwood ashes. And what's really interesting, many Brajabasis were circumambulating him with great respect. What a wonderful sight. So afterwards, Lalita and Vishaka, they went to see Srimati Radharani, and they shared that scene with her. And then they said, "O Radhe, we have seen a great self-realized sage beneath the banyan tree. He seems ancient, perhaps hundreds of years old. People were saying that he grants whatever blessing someone asks from him. So we think you should go and seek his blessings, that you'll always have the association of your beloved Krishna and never be separated." So hearing this, Radha became very excited. She thought, oh, this is a rare opportunity. So taking offerings, garlands, and a water pot, she went with her friends to meet the sage. And when she arrived, she saw that Lalita and Vishaka had spoken truthfully, for she saw that the sage shone with an extraordinary radiance. So with folded palms, she approached him, she bowed, and she respectfully addressed him. "O great sage, please accept my respects. My name is Radha, daughter of Maharaj Vrishabhanu. I only have one desire in my heart. Please understand it and grant your blessing." Please understand it, O great sage, and grant your blessing. But the sage remained silent. And Radha's friends, they began guessing. Perhaps he's absorbed in samadhi. They said out loud, perhaps he does not speak to women. They said perhaps he's meditating on Mount Kailash. Perhaps he can't even speak at all. So Radharani, when she heard them, she gently stopped them. She said, "My dear friends, do not mock such an elevated sage. Do not mock such an elevated sage." So again she turned to the sage, asking him very respectfully for his blessings. Now finally the sage gestured that if she wanted his blessings, she must compete with him in a contest of glances. He just gestured because his eyes were closed in samadhi. So some way he gestured. This is how they do. That if she wanted his blessings, there was going to be a competition. What type of competition? A competition of glances. Perfect pastime for the lecture today. But a contest not with weapons, but with glances. So he indicated that when he opened his eyes, a very powerful energy would emerge. And only if she responded perfectly with different glances would that energy become peaceful. In other words, he'd come up with some powerful glance, she had to counter it with the peaceful glance. If she could, she would win, her desire would be fulfilled. So she agreed. So then, the sage opened his eyes, and they blazed like burning coals. And he cast a fearful glance at Sri Radha, but she countered it with a fearless glance. Then he cast a moon-like glance. The moon can be very overpowering. Oh, but she answered it with a very shy glance. She defeated him. Then he cast a very passionate glance. Oh, and she answered it with a heroic glance. So finally, the sage, from his eyes came what? A merciful glance. What? It was a big battle. And now this sage is looking at her with mercy, or even you could say wanting mercy. So at that moment, Sri Radha responded with what? A receptive glance. The sage is showing a merciful glance. She's receiving it. So the sage became pleased. And at last he spoke. "O young girl, ask whatever you desire." So Radha replied, "Dear sage, I already have everything by the grace of the sun god, but please bless me that I may remain always with my beloved Krishna." So the sage, he sat up straight now, shoulders back, eyes open. He put his hand up. Tatashtu, tatashtu. Tatashtu means, so be it. And then what happened? Everyone was watching. Well, what? So be it. So what? So at once, he removed a disguise that he was wearing. And he embraced Sri Radha. And at first everyone was shocked, but then they looked closely and they saw that it was none other than Sri Krishna. He had disguised himself as the sage. For what reason? To relish the beauty of her glances. They had this competition. Everything about her is wonderful. So he relished these different glances. It was just a transcendental pastime. So when everyone saw that, they all burst into laughter. So much laughter in Vrindavan. Thus Krishna became enchanted and conquered by the glances of Sri Radha. So our author Ballabha Das, he glorifies Radha as the mistress of divine glances and the beloved of Govardhan Dari Krishna. Wow, what a pastime. Eternal pastime. In Braj, pastimes happen over and over, but by the mercy of Purnamasi, they're ever fresh like first time. So let us conclude today, Prabhus, with a verse by our beloved Sri Raghunath Das Goswami from his prayer, Sri Radha Kund Ashtaka. Sri Radha Kund Ashtaka means 8. So there are 8 prayers glorifying Radha Kund, and this is verse number 3. Very appropriate. He writes, "For the pleasure of Srimati Radhika, even Krishna himself, yearning to attain her merciful sidelong glance, performs difficult austerities at the very precious and fragrant Radha Kund. Regularly bathing and carefully observing all the appropriate rituals, may that supremely enchanting Radha Kund always be my shelter." Wow. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami has spoken. I have no right to say anything more. We're all subservient to his grace, to his mercy. So I'll finish there. So thank you, Prabhus. More on glances. We're just, there's a treasure chest with lots of jewels. We just open up the top and we're just peeking in at this point. There's so much nectar in this particular subject, Radharani's glances. So see you soon, next Friday. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, her wonderful sidelong glance ki, Mayapurdam ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sant Kirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Jai Jai, Sri Radhe Shyam. Glorious to Shri Radha.